Killer.
Welcome back to CFB Nation. I am your host, Nino Brown, and you already see him on the screen. When we're on the screen together, you know what it means. It's Devy Darlings time. My co-host, Dino. How we doing?
Uh, I'm not too bad. Good weekend. I'm excited you're back. I had a good show with Boomer, but us Devy Darlings since day one. So
That's it. I don't even know how many we're into. We got to check that out. I think we might be close to 40 or 50 of them by now.
yeah, we got to be close.
It's been a run. It's been a run.
Yeah.
I think this gentleman we're going to talk about, as you see him on the screen here, Wisconsin freshman Darrion Dupree, I believe it's Dupree. Let's watch a little bit of tape when I was going into it before I decided to put him on the list. I'm like, oh, this guy kind of intrigues me a little bit here. So I figured it'd be an interesting name. We're going to break down the room, but I think there's an opportunity for him in his freshman season. But let's rewind it a little bit. All right, this gentleman's 5'10", 190 pounds. He's considered a bigger back, right? It was the 29th running back in the 2024 class. It's a 4-star. Mount Carmel High School out of Illinois. He was the Chicago Sun-Times Player of the Year in 2023. Okay, that was senior season. And then in his junior year, he helped them, Mount Carmel, win a 7A state championship. So, I mean, not only does he have the numbers, he's got a little bit of hardware, right? He's got that Player of the Year award as well. So he's a dude. Talk to me a little bit about his time at Mount Carmel.
Yeah, so his state championship year, junior year, he ran 71 times, 614 yards, 10 touchdowns. I mean, not too shabby. Right. But his senior year, he took it up a couple notches. Ended up rushing for almost 1,100 yards, right. 755 receiving yards. He had 16 touchdowns on the ground, and he added 8 through the air for a total of 24 numbers. So, I mean, I can see why schools went after him.
Oh, yeah, it seemed as though from junior year to senior year, he might have worked on something in the offseason because he had a little bit more tools in the toolbox coming out with his senior year. I mean, you said close to 800 yards receiving. He was kind of lined up all over the field. Some of the highlights I seen, he was in the slot, right? Or even just lined him out in the backfield. They just broke him out, and he was going, wheel routes down the sideline, burning guys. So, yeah. We're going to break down some of the attributes that we did see, in some of the highlights, in some of the film that we looked at. But this guy's just an all-around back, right? I mean, he can run, like I said, he can run in between the tackles, but this guy can get outside as well. So, he's, like I said, he's that true back. He's not that guy that's just going to look to run out the edge and get that one block to spring him. Speaking of blocks, he doesn't really need many blocks. He doesn't seem to go down off first hit, and he's explosive. Right, this dude, the best thing I like about him, he doesn't have to decelerate to make a cut. I mean, this guy can go full speed and just boop, boop, and then next thing you know, he's already by you by 2-3 feet. He's got great contact balance. That was the thing I was talking about. Like coming out of the hole, this guy just spinning around, banging around like a pinball. Never like just stops. He never like gets bottled up. He's always fighting. He just always has that grit to him. Easy to tackle. He doesn't make it easy for these guys to tackle him. At 190, probably right now closer to 200, being in that, freshman year in a collegiate program, in that camp, in that weight room. This guy could be a problem for seems to be these undersized, speedier linebackers that they seem to be transitioning to both in college and in the NFL. What were some of the things that you've seen about Dupree that you liked?
Yeah, so initially I saw he had a good burst, whether that's going through the hole or to the outside. Right. There wasn't much of a difference in burst-wise. His hip flexibility was superb, able to make those cuts with ease. He's a natural playmaker. Yeah. Again, that goes with the initial burst and hip flexibility. One thing that I think, like we had talked about, his hands. He's got really soft hands, which you don't find in running backs nowadays. You have first down running backs or you have third. So it's pretty rare to get the combination. Watching some of his film, he is an open field monster. If he gets in the open, I mean, you're toast. And which goes with his breakaway ability.
Yes.
For almost 200 pounds, the kid's got some wheels. So.
Yeah, we don't have a certified, verified 40 time for him. He's not a track guy, but one thing that it's just
he's football fast.
Yes, yeah, I love it. Exactly. He's football fast, and in the open field, he just seems to find a way. Like even if they're not free safety cheats, is able to make a hit on him. He's just able to kind of like break out of it, even wrap up his legs. He can kind of muscle his way out of it. Like you said, 200 pounds. This guy's coming down the pipeline at you, and he's not afraid of anything. He's gonna, like I said, he doesn't avoid the hit. I wasn't able to find anything about was yards after contact, but I have a funny feeling this guy's going to be a yak monster. Um, for Wisconsin. Like I said in the title, is he the next stud Wisconsin back? Like, it's just this seems like a guy that could probably tote the rock about 250 times a game, and he has that receiving capability. We talked about a guy in this year's draft that went to Oakland who had great hands, right? And in the opening intro, you seen the over the shoulder catch. There's not a lot of backs that can catch that back shoulder fade. This guy had good ball track ability, over the shoulder catches. I think whatever he worked on from junior year to senior year, it clicked. And I
Absolutely.
stack a little bit more coming into its collegiate time here. Everybody else seemed to notice it, all right? At 32 offers, coming down the pipeline for him. Alabama, Boston College, Wisconsin, Michigan, West Virginia, Cincinnati, Iowa, Missouri, Nebraska, UConn, and there was many more. I just want to highlight this, and we'll circle back later on. Before he did commit to Wisconsin, the last two visits he did visit and they were official, were Missouri and Michigan. So if things don't happen to play out, those are teams that we might want to look at that could go, next year in the portal. He might be wanting to go there. Well, because he was heavily recruited by Spalding, like Devin Spalding from Wisconsin. But Wisconsin, he also brought in the guy that he heavily recruited that you're going to talk about in this room shortly is Gideon. That is a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing for me because he highly recruited by the same guy. Who's going to be the one that he really wants? But real quick, and talk about this RB room and who's he got for competition and how many heads he's got to jump over to get there.
Yeah, so it's kind of a crowded room. I mean, you got Ches Malusi coming back for what this will be his third year with Wisconsin. He's
off injury, right?
Yeah, off injury. 5'11", 204. He had 51 attempts, 306 yards, 4 touchdowns before, like you said, injury. And a lot of people, he was starting to steal some reps from Allen early in the year too.
Yeah, which is crazy, which I don't understand. You would think with Fickle coming over there, right, that it would just be okay. We got the big boy. We're gonna ride him out. But you're right. He was kind of the RB1 for those first 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And Allen was more the receiving back. It was weird.
It was weird. Yeah, they flipped roles. So then we got Walker, the Oklahoma transfer, who had 102 attempts, 513 yards, 7 touchdowns. And then, like you said, he's got Gideon Ataka, 3-star, 221 attempts, 2,250 yards, 33 touchdowns, high school wise. He's a freshman. And then you got Nate White, who is kind of a scat back like J.D. McKinnon, who's a redshirt freshman. So it's kind of a crowded room, pretty upperclassmen led. So.
And the thing I mentioned about Gideon, and the reason why I wanted to bring up, because I said, I mentioned that, Dupree is like a bigger back, right? Well, Gideon is that bigger back. I mean, he's 5'10", 230. I mean, this guy is a possibility. If they run in with a fullback, he could turn, if they ever were going to do that or go a 2-back set, he could be in there just for blocker purposes alone, right? So, but if it's going to be on those short and yardage, third down, plays where I thought Dupree might be able to eat into that, he's going to have to fight this gentleman who's going to be the pounder for the Badgers. So that scares me a little. Again, Devin Spalding, highly recruiting both of these gentlemen, scares me a little bit in that room. How odd it was last year with Ches Malusi being the lead back somehow, some way for 4 weeks. I wish, I truly wish he didn't get injured, because we would have seen how it would have played out. Like, look where Allen fell in the draft because of how he had to play. And in week 5 or 6, when he took over the role, it was kind of like he was still more of like that receiving guy. He was getting his 15 to 17 attempts on the ground, right, but they were still rolling him out, passing to him, attempts out the side, putting him in the slot a little bit. It was odd. So I'm kind of concerned a little bit on where we could see him in this game.
Right. I mean, like you were saying, early in the season, us at CFB, a lot of us were sold on Allen being RB1 going
Yeah.
into the draft. And these first 3 weeks of last season really, like you said, hurt his draft stock. So yeah, I'm curious, but at the same time, it could be maybe after this year, Gideon and Dupree kind of fill the roles of what Malusi and Allen were this year.
And that would be a nice one
That
to
would be a
punch
nice
there,
one.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're going with a 2-back set with 2 bigger backs, one guy who can play, inside and out, and one guy who's just going to be a dominator in the middle, of the line. I think that could be a nice set for the future. But you're obviously going to want to get these guys some reps because is Malusi going to be 100% week 1, right? We don't know. And can you rely on just him being the elderman to carry the load all year?
I don't think he's a one
exactly. Yeah, they're looking at. I don't think Malusi's going for 250 plus attempts. I think somewhere in the 175, 200 range, and that would be the ceiling.
I mean, even that would be pretty generous. If he gets 150, I think
I feel like
your money's worth out of him.
In Fickle's system, him being a senior, wanting to get that draft stock, wanting to get 2 back-to-back running backs out of Wisconsin to go and the top 4 round. He's gonna want that. That's something he's gonna want to be able to say. I came over to Wisconsin, produced back-to-back, NFL caliber running backs.
Right.
Is Malusi that? I don't per se know. But we didn't. If he kept up what he did last year, he very well couldn't have gone to the NFL and said, "Yo, I'm not coming back to Wisconsin."
Right.
So you just don't know. But I do believe these guys are going to get some attempts. Which one's going to eat up and feast on the attempts that they do get? We get into that part of the show, my man. We're going to talk about some player comps here. I got 3 player comps because I was kind of just the style of play this gentleman has. He can go a lot of ways, right? So I had a James Cook vibe, but then I thought about thinking about that. I'm like, because I do the seal and floor. I'm like, that's kind of like the guy was 4th in the NFL last year in rushing yards. He only had 2 touchdowns, but he had so many receiving yards, receptions. I think he had like 6 or 7 touchdowns through the air. So it's like I could see Dupree being that role. But his receiving game is so unique, and only in 1 year being able to put up 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. I also said, okay, maybe the floor would be more of a Rashad White, okay, where 800 yards on the ground, 850 on the ground, somewhere around there. Going to be a dominant receiving back. Probably get you, close to 7, 8 touchdowns through the air, and then the ultimate ceiling is Le'Veon Bell. Maybe not be as shifty as him, but Le'Veon Bell was so hard to tackle down and bring down. Le'Veon Bell had the best patience. I don't know if Dupree has the patience like Le'Veon Bell did. Like he's like we always say, this guy literally could stop and then boom, take it and hit the hole. So I don't know if he has that, but his ability to just constantly move his feet, his ability to kind of just be like shifty and floating, going through traffic, almost like, okay, he tripped my foot, boom, it didn't really affect me. I'll boom, I'm on to the next step. Okay, I'm gonna go, laterally if I have to make that was like how Le'Veon Bell was, and he was a great pass catcher. Like even when he held out, went to the Jets, his run game sucked, but he still was able to catch the ball out of the backfield and help them move the ball on 3rd down and stuff like that. So those are my 3 guys. I mean, if he takes a piece from each one of them guys, I think he's going to have a good collegiate and NFL career. But I think some of the traits that I see from him on film, I see from these guys as well. So what are your thoughts on those guys? And let's hear yours.
I mean, I love the James Cook, Le'Veon Bell comps. I mean, I like the White too, but obviously White's a little bit bigger. Maybe more of a physical running back right now. But yeah, I don't hate those comps. I mean, if you get even a fraction of Le'Veon Bell his last few years in Pittsburgh, I mean,
to think that they had Le'Veon Bell and
they had Brown, Bell, Wallace. Yeah, it didn't win anything.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it hurts.
Yeah. But all right, so give me your guys.
So yeah, I went floor ceiling kind of wise too. My first one as the floor would be Tevin Coleman. Just one of the I think he was extremely underrated in the NFL. Could do anything you asked him to. Was good between the tackles, outside. He had underrated hip flexibility. Again, Didn't have to accelerate much to make a cut. It's just he was a running back 2 when there was the stud running back 1. So I don't think he really got his time. And then my ceiling is Todd Gurley. To this day, is still being talked about as being one of the top touchdown people, even though he hasn't played in 5 years.
He has what? Like I think he's like
78 career. Yeah,
top 15. I think still, and he hasn't played in 7 years. It's stupid.
Yeah. So I mean, when you speak of Todd Gurley, he could do anything you wanted at the running back position. Natural playmaker, underrated catching. I felt like
right. No, I agree.
Hip flexibility, could run inside, outside. I mean, had he been still playing right now, you would see formations where he was out in the slot or out wide for McVay if his knees held up.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's always, it's like in my back of my brain, I'm like, yeah, maybe he could.
I think he was athletic enough that he could.
Yeah, healthy enough. Yes, it's like because like McFadden could have ran out to the slot, but those guys' knees, I don't know, would allow them to make cuts in the slot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But healthy, probably, yeah. And what linebacker is going to line up with them? Like,
exactly.
No, not happening.
Exactly. So those were my 2 guys.
I love it. Like I said, I really, and it didn't come to my mind because he's like a poor man's James Cook. Like Tevin Coleman is a poor man's James Cook. I mean, there was years he had 800 yards with Atlanta. I think that his ultimate. Yeah, I think that was like 18 or 17 or something like that. He had like 800 yards. The year before that, I think he had close to like 500-600 yards. Wasn't a huge touchdown guy. Wasn't a dependent guy. He had 5 or 6 here. Then 8 1 year. I think his first year in Atlanta, and then he went to San Francisco, where he's more of like you said, they had a guy. He just happened to be the other guy. But we're looking at years of like 30, 20, 30 receptions, multiple years of 40 targets. I mean, I could ultimately see Dupree coming in there, and if that was the floor,
right? It's a pretty solid floor.
Pull it up. What's he got?
And I mean, I didn't want to go down.
Looking at a 10-year career. Like Tevin Coleman played 10 years. I mean, there's really nothing wrong with that.
And I didn't want to go down the easy road of, but like watching his tape, I mean, he fits former Badger running backs. You could see some Melvin Gordon in him. You could see some Monty Ball in him.
Yeah.
All those guys. So.
And that's why I had to put that in the title, is because can he be that next stud guy? Like Monty Ball wasn't more of a receiving guy, but when he went to the NFL, they tried to use him in the receiving role. He did a little bit before all field things, obviously.
Right.
Over, but
I mean, you had James White, who was the receiving back for him with Monty Ball.
So he didn't need it necessarily.
Exactly.
But like, just look at the same combination of out in North Carolina a few years ago. It was Javonte Williams and who was his counterpart?
Oh, yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Drawing a blank right now. But yeah, one guy was the pass catcher. One guy was thrower. But when we go to the NFL, Williams has now developed that pass catching ability, but prior to the injury. So it's like, yeah, they may have been used in their own lane in college, but when you go to the NFL, man, they're trying to spread you out like peanut butter. And whatever lane they can put you in, they're going to put you in. So this was an absolutely fantastic episode, a little longer than normal, but I enjoyed diving in. We kind of do a little more comparison, talking about, more of where we see the guy at the next level. And that is what Devy Darlings is ultimately about. It's the developmental stage. If you don't know what Devy is, that is what it's all about. Is it the development them at this level can take them to the next level and be a guy. I'm Nino Brown. This is my guy D Now. This is CFB Nation, Devy Darlings, and we out.